well is this has to do with education. So our state largely funds its education requirements for elementary and secondary schools through sales tax. Is this sustainable? Sure.
No, it isn't, and you can see now why it's not sustainable. We're a sales tax-based economy. When people are afraid and not spending their money, we do not have the money to fund education. And that's pretty sad, because in order to bring business in here, we have to have a well-trained workforce. And that doesn't matter whether it's elementary schools, secondary schools, community and technical colleges, which many kids get to go to because they don't want to go on to a four-year university. We need the money to fund these things. And without a sustainable, steady revenue stream, we can't do what the state is supposed to do under its paramount duty, is to fund education. And remember, you can't cut taxes and fully fund education. It's just not possible. So, is that yellow or that was yellow? So we can't do it, and we need to do it.
That's right.
Yes, I knew that, but he stopped on the yellow the last time, so maybe it changed while I was sleeping.
I usually step on the gas when I get to the yellow, but I think we need to look where all this lottery money is going. That I came home on leave from the Coast Guard one year a long time ago and found out we had a Washington State lottery, and we were supposed to bet on winning $1 million, and the spoils of that was supposed to help education in the state of Washington. And I don't see, I'd like to explore where that stream of money is really going, because people aren't winning every week and people are betting every week. So there's some money in lottery that's being moved over to the general fund that should be headed for education. Sales tax works when you have a robust economy and people are employed and they're buying cars and jeans and TVs and paying the excise tax on the transfer of real estate and paying sales tax on everything. And if we can get people working in the state of Washington, there will be plenty of revenue to fully fund K-12 education. Thank you.
All right, and Peter, this one is a question is, are you a capitalist or a communist? And will you work to restore our liberty and property rights?
I'm not a communist.
Hold the applause.
I joined the armed forces when we were in Vietnam, and we were engaged in a severe Cold War with the Soviet Union. And I come from a family where my father owned a small machine shop in Kingston, and I started working in that, or in Seattle, I'm sorry, and I started working in that when I was about 14 years old after school, and learned what manufacturing was all about, and that when you take your hands and tools and make something and somebody buys it, that's a good thing, because a lot of times they can take that thing that you made and turn it into a tail strut assembly on a 727 airplane and fly people around the world and develop commerce. I believe in the free enterprise system that allows entrepreneurs to create and build things and make jobs and create prosperity and take care of the people that need us to take care of them.
Can you read that again, Joe?
Sure can. Question is, are you a capitalist or a communist, and will you work to restore our liberty and property rights?
Well, first of all, I don't think anybody in this room is a communist. I mean, you may have different interpretations, but I can tell you that I don't know anybody who's a communist. Am I a capitalist? I am. I believe in the free enterprise system, but sometimes the free enterprise system needs a little help. As far as freedom, restore freedom, I think we have great elections in this country. I don't see any coups. I don't see people getting shot. I don't see people being hung in effigy. I mean, the truth is, we have a very good system of freedom that we all participate in. And I'm looking at all of you. You're participating in democracy right now. This is called freedom. As far as property rights, the state regulates some of it or passes laws for some of it, But mostly it's local. It's counties and cities who regulate what you do with your property rights because the state gives them the police powers to do it.
Staying with you, Sherry. Now let's move on over to our
Why not just stand?
yeah. Let's move on to the state government. Particularly, what will you do to reduce state government spending?
Well, I think we've done that. As I told you, in 2009, we cut the state budget by $9 billion. This past year, we cut $4 billion more. We let go 1,000 middle managers, 4,000 employees. We have cut expenses to the core, and we keep doing that. We'll have to go back this year because of the looming deficit and find other places to cut. But we have not increased spending. As a matter of fact, this last budget was $1 billion less, the first time since 1952. So we are listening to you. We are doing the right thing. And remember, those 4,000 people who got laid off are looking for jobs too.
Well, I think there is some room to cut. I think Governor Locke back in the days had a priorities of government theory that we went on and balanced some budgets on, and we need to reassess the priorities of what the government does. And we also need to look at things that the government's doing that perhaps could be done by someone else. And I'm totally in favor of the privatization of the liquor. And I think we really need to look at the labor and industries insurance system and look at one of the things that really makes things work is competition. And when the state has a monopoly on something that a private entrepreneur in the free enterprise system could maybe better do more efficiently and create more jobs all over the state, I think it's something that we need to look at, and I think those are the places we need to cut. We need to get the government out of some of the business that it does.
All right, well, staying with the question of cutting is that, more specifically, do you believe that there are non-essential state programs that can still be reduced further or eliminated? If so, what are they?
I think if you look at some of the regulatory things that, let's say, fisheries and environment and hydraulics and all of the other agencies do, where you're being on a project where you're doing some capital work to try and create something like jobs, or an environment where jobs will happen, you need to reduce. We need to combine some of these regulatory agencies, and I think there's an initiative going on to do that. But that really needs to be pushed, because once you take a couple layers of that bureaucracy away from a project, the project gets done quicker. And at the end of the project, there's a couple things that happen. Is the material that goes out to build the project earns sales tax, and when the project is done, generally people are employed by it. So we need to get the jobs built up, and we need to facilitate that as a government.
Well, in the last 2 years, we actually have created 40,000 jobs in the state of Washington. And I think here in Kitsap County, we have been extremely lucky, where the state unemployment rate is 9.5%. In Kitsap County, because of the stability of the military, our unemployment rate is only 7.5, which is still too high. We just have to look at what's essential and what's non-essential. I think that's up to interpretation. What I think is essential is making sure that people who cannot take care of themselves are able to take care of themselves. Do I think that there are agencies that we need to look into and see if there's any excess? Yes, we're going to look for that, because we have to cut $3 billion out of the budget. I mean, it's just how it's going to be. And I wanted to just respond to one thing. The lottery, when it first came into effect, if people had read what it was about, it was only 29% that went to education. 4 years ago, we made it so 100% goes to education.
So let me flip the question now, because I talked about, yes,
Okay.
for you, Sherry, starting with you. And this is, before we talk about cutting government spending, this one says increases in the cost of government are a function of increases in population and inflation. Given this reality, state your 3 top priorities for funding and how you propose to live within taxpayers' means during these hard times.
My 3 priorities for funding.
3 priorities for funding and how you propose to live within taxpayers' means during these hard times.
Well, that's a good question. And I have to say that I haven't thought of each and every one separately. I do think that with initiatives like 1098, we will make business better and we will fund more because we will have taken the onus off the back of 375,000 small businesses. We also will reduce property taxes by 20% in that initiative. That's what it says. We can shake our heads and all that, but that's not true. In the initiative, it will reduce everybody's property tax by 20%. And there are some things that we can do, like we can look at loopholes, tax exemptions. Wouldn't it be a great idea if we just, for the next 3 years, cut all tax exemptions by 5% and return it then after 3 years? But wouldn't that help us in government so much when we're giving out $23 billion a year to different manufacturing and business groups?
Thank you. Same question to you, please.
I think as I talked earlier, the big way to increase funding is to get everybody back to work so that they're living in a free market society and spending their wages and their earnings and their investments on things that create the funding that's already in place. I don't think we need to raise any taxes. There may be some adjustments along the way where some loopholes are being abused, but if we can create the environment where businesses come to the state of Washington because we have a fair taxing policy, we don't have a regressive business tax, where it's less expensive to employ people, the costs of employment are huge. I think the funding will increase when the jobs are there. And we don't need to be looking at new sources of funding.